Greetings, listeners. Welcome to Consulting Between Friends. I am your host, Michael Holmes Jr. When there is a situation in your community, there are people who can resolve these issues. There are organizations in your area that can resolve any problem. For example, the school system, unemployment, and citizens' rights. Community organizers can resolve. Most organizations will have a person who is a community organizer, and the organizer is responsible for finding a solution to any problem. A community organizer is defined as an individual who networks with and mobilize the community to support a cause, develop programs, and initiate any other positive social impact. This community organizer has knowledge and education on different subjects individuals need. There are some unique people you may come across in your life that can benefit you. These individuals have skills in different professions they offer and others which you can learn from. This person is a mentor who can change your perspective in life. A mentor is defined as an individual who acts as an advisor or coach for a less experienced person in a field and provides expert and professional knowledge from a more experienced perspective. There are mentors in all subjects in education that you can choose from. The person or the group will be surprised by what knowledge they will gain from a mentor. Some people are looking for direction in a specific career or a coach to guide them along the way. In this episode, I will be interviewing Lynda Woolard, a community organizer, as well a mentor who transformed many lives. The topic is the journey of a community organizer who became a mentor named Lynda Woolard. We will return after a message from our sponsor. Everyone is always planning things, and advertising is needed to make it happen. So, if it's personal or business, let Pinpoint Designs and Images solve that problem. With Pinpoint Designs and Images LLC, you will receive quality work and professional service at a great price. The service that is offered: flyers, business cards, programs, invitations, photo books, ad booklets, and much more. Michael Holmes Jr., owner/principal designer of Pinpoint Designs and Images LLC, contact me by email or social media. Email address is pinpointdesignsandImages@gmail.com, and Instagram Pinpoint Designs, and Facebook Pinpoint Designs and Images. We are back. Before the interview begins, I want to give you some background on Lynda Woolard. I first met Lynda in 2008 while volunteering for the Barack Obama campaign in New Orleans, Louisiana. Lynda is originally from North Carolina but moved to New Orleans 30 years ago. She is a 17-year veteran campaign organizer and Democratic strategist. Lynda's political career began with the Barack Obama campaign in New Orleans, Louisiana. Lynda has 6 years of advocacy relationship with the campaign and was involved in numerous Louisiana state campaigns, which include Governor John Bell Edwards' two-term in office, the Unanimous Jury Coalition constitutional amendment to end the discrimination practice of non unanimous juries, and the election of Devontae Lewis to the Louisiana Public Service Commission. She has been working to rebuild the Democratic Party in the state of Louisiana. Currently acts as an advisor for the campaign called Blue Reboot. The Blue Reboot has candidates running for seats on the Democratic State Central Committee. The goal for the Blue Reboot is reforming the Louisiana Democratic Party. Lynda is the host of the Louisiana Lefty podcast. As you can see, Lynda has contributed her time and effort in politics and informing others. My guest today is Lynda Woolard. Now, welcome to Consulting Between Friends podcast.
Michael, thank you so much for having me. And I love that I'm on Consulting Between Friends with you because we've been friends for quite a long time now. I met you when I first started working in politics, and I've known you ever since.
That is correct. We have met in politics in 2008.
That's right. That's right. And we got to go recently to see the recording of the podcast Pod Save America when they were here in Louisiana. We got to go together to see that.
Correct. I'm glad you invited me. I really did enjoy that. It was a live show and it was very funny. I like how they were talking about different topics.
Yeah, that was really good. That was a really excellent thing for two podcasters to be able to go see together, right?
That is definitely true. Well, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. And I'm excited to be here talking to you.
Yes, the weather has been nice outside today.
We've had a lovely day today. And man, I was taking advantage of it as much as I could.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And right around the corner is daylight saving time.
Yeah. And man, I was working in my backyard today because it was so nice. And my clementine tree has got the most lovely smelling blooms on it right now. So I look forward to that every spring when my clementine tree blooms.
Well, that is very nice.
Yeah.
Well, can you explain your background?
Yes. So you had me on to talk about politics, and I started politics after Hurricane Katrina and the flooding of New Orleans. So I had prior to that I had an art gallery and did graphic design services, and I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to be doing about that when the city flooded and we were all evacuated. I was like, well, what need is there even for that? But I made my way back to New Orleans and started figuring out life here. And as we were rebuilding, I knew that, we really needed to get an ally in the White House to help this region rebuild. And so that is what started me working in politics. So I worked on the first Barack Obama campaign for president, where you and I met.
Yes.
And then I stayed with his organization through in between his two presidential campaigns. We organized locally for healthcare reform and Wall Street reform and those kind of things. So that was through Organizing for America. So I stayed with Obama and his team for 6 years. And then when he won re-election in 2012, I went to work for the Louisiana Democratic Party for 3 years, all the way up through John Bell Edwards' first election for governor. And then after that, I worked on Hillary Clinton campaign. I was state director for Hillary Clinton. I worked for the Unanimous Jury Coalition in 2018, where we helped pass the constitutional amendment that did away with the non-constitutional or the unconstitutional practice of non-unanimous juries. And then I worked again in 2019 on John Bel Edwards' reelection, and after that, I started working on this podcast, Louisiana Lefty, that I'm doing today, which is a political podcast.
Yes. Well, I like how you explain yourself, and I see you have a you have a big political background, and a lot of people really appreciate meeting you as well. Since you also mentioned that, can you also mention where you from?
So I'm originally from North Carolina, but
Mhm.
my family moved around a lot growing up. So we never lived anywhere for more than a couple of years.
Oh, okay.
And I moved to New Orleans, Louisiana 30 years ago. So I have been here and in the house that I live in now. So I've been in this house and this city for longer than I've ever lived anywhere else.
Oh, that's nice to know. I know when you have a place that's like your home and that you really enjoy, it matters the most.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like this is my home and, this is my community. I really moved to New Orleans with a great love for this city, having been here several times. And it was through politics and through organizing that I really came to love the whole state, the state as a
Mhm.
whole. Because you start to see how the state as an organism, you can't really pull the parts apart, right? It is an organism altogether. All the different regions really feed into each other and make a whole.
Yes, that is definitely true. Well, we're about to start the interview.
Okay.
How did you get involved in politics? What made you want to become a mentor?
So, like I said, I got involved in politics because of Hurricane Katrina and the flooding of New Orleans. And I also, just found Barack Obama so inspirational.
Mhm,
And once you get involved with his team and his group of
mhm,
people, I really found them to be it was like a crash course in politics and community organizing. And it was really I felt like I learned so much from being involved with them that and I
mhm.
and I connected with so many people and folks all across the state that at some point it just became what I did, and it felt like you're involved in all these very important missions and actions for the state it, and you gain this knowledge from working with these folks. So at some point it felt like, well, I can't let my community down. Like we're working on these things. I can't stop
Mhm.
working on them. And I want to share this knowledge that I have with other people so that other people can do these things that we're doing that I think are so important towards making progress in the state and in the country. And so that's part of the reason that I think I became a mentor also, is trying to get other people to learn the things that I learn
Mhm.
and making sure, one of the things in organizing you're always wanting to do is create more of yourself, right? Create more
Yes.
people who
Mhm.
know how to do what you do so that, there's strength in numbers, power in numbers. So the more folks you can get to know how to do this work, the stronger the movement is. But also, it's exhausting work. So there are times when people have to kind of take a break and, you know, move aside for a little bit and have somebody else take over and take the reins for a while. So it's really important to make sure that you're sharing that information and that knowledge with other people so that they can take over when you're at, like right now, I'm having a lot of issues with my family, and so
Mhm.
my ability to engage is a little hampered. So it's nice for me to see that there are other people out there that can do the things I do. And I feel confident and comfortable that there are folks out there managing things.
Yes, that is definitely understandable. You have taught a lot of different people what you have learned as well through politics, and a lot of people have really admired meeting you and understanding you, and I'm definitely one of those as well.
Well, thank you, Michael. That's very sweet.
You're welcome. What made you want to start a political podcast? What have you learned since interviewing so many guests?
Well, I think part of the reason I wanted to start the podcast is I did want to back away a little bit from the actual active campaign work I was doing. As again, I had been
Mhm,
doing it for so many years that I was starting to feel a little fatigued by it. But also, it was sort of born out of 2017 when Donald Trump got elected to the presidency, and we had all these resistance movements going
mhm,
on, and folks
mhm,
for the first time, all those indivisibles and new groups all across the state who were getting involved for the first time and needing to learn how to put actions together and find impactful ways to push back against some of the stuff Trump was trying to do. I hosted a conference call, a table call every week in 2017.
mhm,
The I was not working for the Louisiana Democratic Party, but they allowed me to use their infrastructure to put that together. Um, and so we hosted a call that took people who had been organizing in the state for a long time and folks
mhm,
who were brand new to it. And we got them on calls together and kind of let the older organizers teach the newer organizers what they needed to do. And
mhm,
I thought that was really effective. And what I didn't like about it is if someone missed a call, well, they were out of luck. They didn't get to learn that information, right? So it
mhm.
started at some point to feel like to me, like, well, we need that recorded so people can go back and listen to it later.
Yes.
But then the nice thing about a podcast is it's archived. It's online. It's on, it's
Mhm,
on the iPhone app and Spotify and all of that so that anybody it's far more democratized, right? Like anybody can listen to that and learn about it, whether they've been invited to the call or not, whether they've ever heard
mhm.
of me before or know anybody else on the call. Now it's can reach more people. So
Yes.
that was really the reason I wanted to start the podcast because I knew I had been talking to all these amazing people who had all this great information and all this knowledge, and I
Mhm,
wanted to be able to share that. I wanted those people to be able to share it with other folks so other people in Louisiana can learn how to organize and run campaigns and have successful actions and win elections and
mhm.
that's the kind of thing I really wanted to be able to let people know. And again, because it's archived, even if it's something that we posted online 2 years ago, it may be still useful for someone 2 years from now when they wanna learn how to run a campaign. So
Yes.
that's why I wanted to do that. Um, and then what was the second part of the question?
The second part of the question is, what have you learned since interviewing so many guests?
Wow, well, it it made me really recognize. I knew all these great organizers and great political people, but it made me really realize how many of them there are and how powerful they could be.
Mhm,
And the more people we can get trained up and plugged into the actions that they're working on, the more powerful we really could be in Louisiana. So
mhm.
um, I really have just been impressed to know that there are this many wonderful people working in our state for good.
Yes. Yes, you had interview a lot of um, powerful people in the state of Louisiana and people who are grassroots individuals as well. Because I actually followed your podcast, and I was glad that you chose to actually do that and use your expertise.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And I mean, that's the thing is like I'm there and so there are things that I can share that I know, but by and large what I'm really trying to do is get all this knowledge from these other folks that that I know and that I've just been so fortunate to work with most of these people.
Yes. So since you did have the podcast, What made you choose the name Louisiana Lefty?
Yeah, so I do lean left, right? So I
Yes.
some people think of lefty as this sort of more socialist or like super left moniker, and I didn't really mean it like that. I just it just means like I'm a left-leaning person,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to make it as a podcast for progressives. Often progressives also get this really sort of bad rap, or
Mm-hmm.
this belief that they're, again, just super far radical left. And most progressives I know, there are some radical left progressives, but most progressives I know are really pragmatists and just want a better world, a better state, a better country for
Mm-hmm.
the average person, for the workers and for families and for kids. And
Mm-hmm.
I think, one of the folks that I've interviewed and that I've actually worked on his campaign when he ran for public service commissioner, Devontae Lewis, really talks a lot about progressive policies really just help people. And if you can pull the conversation away from just the name calling of titling it
Mm-hmm.
progressive and just break it down into how progressive policies tend to be able to help people, people
Mm-hmm.
really relate to it. When you take issues issue by issue and poll them in Louisiana, quote unquote progressive policies actually poll very well here, even though the
Mm-hmm.
state tends to vote conservative. They
Mm-hmm.
um they really actually approve of a lot of the things that we as progressives are
Mm-hmm.
advocating for. So I really wanted to acknowledge that I'm a left leaning person and that I'm really trying to speak to Democrats and progressives about how to be more successful, win more elections, and pass more of the issues we want to get passed in the state. And that's really kind of what the conversations are around, not so much about ranting about liberal policies, but about trying to find a way to make sure that um, we can be more successful.
Yes. And I also did like your take how you was doing the podcast, Louisiana Lefty, of having different groups of people and different people who are different organizers who are doing stuff in the state or are working with the state and who just have a good thing on their shoulder. You really brought that out. And I know everybody who you brought on the show really appreciate that you gave them that opportunity to shine.
And then, side note, our logo is this donkey, and it's really taken from the Vote Builder app that most Democrats have up until now. I know there's some stuff going on with the with the system now where I guess Saudi Arabia has
Mhm.
bought some
Yeah.
of it and there's some
Mhm.
issues with it. I don't know what's going to happen, but up until now, Vote Builder's sort of been the go-to data system that Democrats have used, and they've
Yes.
got this little mascot that's a donkey that's called
Mhm.
Lefty. So
Mhm.
I had grabbed. They had a little plastic donkey at one of the conference I'd been to, and I
Mhm.
had just grabbed that. And so anyway, I started calling him Louisiana Lefty and had already made some social media accounts for this little donkey that I was getting all these elected
Mhm.
officials. I got Bill Clinton to take a picture with this little donkey. I mean, I got a bunch of Democrats
Mhm.
taking pictures with him. Mary Landrieu, Cory Booker. So I got just a lot of great photos of folks with this donkey, and I thought, well, I got to keep this donkey involved in the whole thing too.
Mhm. Well, I remember seeing some of those pictures you had online on your social media. So,
Yep, yep.
tell me about some of the organizations you have involved in and how they help mold you into the person you are today.
Well, like I said, Organizing for America was one of the big ones. After Obama got elected to president, that really trained me on how to organize and how to be politically savvy. So that was a huge organization for me. For many years, I have been on the board of the Independent Women's Organization, and I was brought onto that organization by the great Felicia Kahn, who many people know, and she passed away in 2018. But I really enjoyed working with her and many of the women who uh, restarted that organization after Katrina. It's
Mhm.
been around since 1939, I think, but
Mm.
it had died, I guess, right around Katrina, and they kind of reconstituted it and brought it back. And they were just some remarkable, powerful, independent women. So they taught me a whole lot, and certainly taught me a lot about the local political scene that
Mhm.
organizing for America and the national political campaigns couldn't teach me.
Mhm.
Independent Women's Organization really uh, let me learn more about my local politics, which was really nice.
Mhm.
I served on Orleans Parish Democratic Executive Committee for one term, and uh, again, I really got to meet up close and personal people who are working in each of those city council districts. So I met a lot of people I would not have otherwise met had I not been a member of that organization. Um, I've worked on for a long time on a lot of different animal rescue groups. That's been one of my longest passions, and uh, just really learned how important it is for organizations to work well with other organizations that are
Mhm.
working towards the same goals through that. Um, Environmental organizations and climate organizations have also been things that I've been super involved in. And man, I just know how much support they need, particularly in Louisiana. So I
Mhm.
do like trying to lift them up where I can because that's such a critical issue here. And
Mhm.
then one of the really interesting, I worked on a task force when John Bell Edwards got elected. I worked on his healthcare task force. And one of the big things I learned there was the importance of speaking up, the importance of
Mhm.
being able to raise your voice in a room where you might not feel as informed or educated as some of the other people in the group or as powerful as some of the other people in the group. But that Obama saying of like one voice can change a room, I have,
Mhm.
and without getting into specifics, but I very much learned that my voice made a difference in a room when
Mhm.
I spoke up. Even so, that comment about speak up even if your voice shakes was very relevant there. So
Mhm.
that's just something I think you have to learn, but I think it's a really important lesson.
Yes. And you have speak your mind and let people know what really matters, and you made sure that you was able to introduce it to multiple people as well. One other thing, what I also remember, since you mentioned about the different groups, is I also remember organizing for America. I even remember when you actually created Blue Dat
No,
for
that's right.
Louisa.
That's right. Team Blue Dat started.
Yes.
We took that to the Louisiana Democratic Party, but that started as a regional group in the Obama campaign. Yeah, that's right.
Hmm. Yes.
Right. That
I,
we they had little regional groups that sort of operated as little pods or whatever, and we all had to
mhm.
name our groups. So yeah.
Yes. Hmm. And you was in charge of that and letting other people know about what's going on in the state for Louisiana politics.
Yeah. So yeah, that's something that was a really great time. That was a great time. I enjoyed that group of people too. We had a really good group in Team Blue Dat. They were very dedicated, and those were some powerful days, where we felt like when
Hmm.
Barack Obama won, and
Hmm.
um, there was so much hope there, and then we got a few years later, John Bell Edwards elected to governor, and there was so much hope there, and I
Hmm.
think we're seeing now there's sort of like the ebb and flow of how politics goes, right?
Yes, politics has its ups and downs, but that's
That's
just
right.
how life is.
That's right. That's right.
Hmm. Now we're about to get to the interesting part of the conversation. What are your thoughts on the current administration in Louisiana? How do you feel about the new gun carrying bill being passed?
So, like I was saying, we're we're sort of seeing the other side of the hope coin, right? We're
Yes.
we're in what I feel like is a little bit of a scary place for the state, and I feel like it's dangerous right now for a lot of communities in our state because we've gotten ourselves into this place where we've got a Republican governor who's not just a Republican, but he's very Trump-like in how he approaches things, and I feel like
Mhm,
that's kind of a worrying person to have in charge of things. There's Republicans in every, and I know this isn't a partisan podcast, but so
mhm.
this is just me talking.
No, no,
Um,
you're good, you're good.
uh, but we've got Republicans in every other statewide elected office,
Mhm,
and then Republican supermajorities in both chambers of our legislature, and the issue there is they have a bit of a radical agenda they're pushing. And with a governor and Republican supermajorities in the legislature, there's really nothing to slow them down from just moving
mhm,
that. And we did just see that in this most recent crime session where they passed the bill you mentioned.
mhm,
Um, there's just not a whole lot. I mean, we saw activists and advocates go up there day after day to try to
mhm,
stop some of the stuff from happening. And there's just really not a whole lot they can do when you don't have enough allies. And this goes back to that, the reason I got involved in politics in the first place with putting Barack Obama in the White House is recognizing the need for an ally in the White House. Right
mhm,
now, we don't have enough allies in statewide offices and in the legislature, and there's nothing to
mhm,
stop just the worst things that they want to do from just moving forward. I think that gun bill is one of those things that we're going to see as problematic, and I think particularly here in New Orleans, I don't think they're too worried about how it impacts us in New Orleans, but I do think statewide, the governor and the legislature have certainly signaled that
mhm,
they wanna try to be a little more oppressive, in the city and try to put some more law and order down on us,
mhm,
in a way that I don't think will be particularly effective. We've got the New Orleans delegation who are largely Democrats and actually largely members of the Louisiana Legislative Black Caucus who have been very vocal about the fact that what they're trying to do in the legislature right now is not going to make New Orleans safer.
mhm.
So that's very worrying. I've talked a lot to folks who are members of the organization Vote, who work with
Yes.
formerly incarcerated people, and they're deeply concerned that the criminal justice reforms that we worked for, just clawed our ways forward with
Mhm,
for the last probably decade, um, they're very worried that that's all going to get taken away, and
mhm,
they're all very worried. We just restored a lot of voting rights for formerly incarcerated people, which they're very worried are gonna get stripped from them again.
mhm,
So, we're in a bit of a deep hole right now, and I think that's worrying. I think, um, it would be very easy to worry so much that we just give up and walk away, but I do think there are things that people need to and should be and could be doing,
mhm.
to help get us back on a better path.
Yes. Way I kind of feel with the gun bill is when Jeff Landry did sign the bill in, when I first heard about the bill, I know this is the South, and I also know people enjoy their guns. I totally understand that.
Yeah,
But what I found interesting was that you can be 18 and up to get one, and you don't have to have a permit. I thought at least would be like 21.
yeah,
I think they're gonna have some problems with this. Now, you got some people that are responsible with their guns, but you got a lot of
sure.
people that is not. So I think it's gonna be very interesting since it's actually passed. That's kinda how I feel.
Yes, I think you're right. I agree with your assessment on that.
Mhm. Yeah, I think this is gonna be kinda interesting.
I mean, we're gonna get to we're gonna get to see how it
Mhm,
plays out, and look, I hope what we saw in 2023 when all our statewide and legislative seats were up for
mhm,
election, we had 18% voter turnout.
mhm.
That's incredibly low for statewide elections for the highest
Yes.
ranking, elected official in your state. For 18% of the people to be choosing that is worrisome to me. I
Mhm,
think so. We have some wonderful groups in the state that work on voter education and mobilization. They need support,
mhm,
and I've mentioned one of the things when I sent you my bio, one of the things I've been working on recently is Blue Reboot. We're
yes.
trying to get folks elected to these seats. I don't know when this will come out, but the elections for the Democratic Party presidential preference primary is March 23rd,
Mhm,
and on that same ballot, and this is true for every 4 years, on the presidential preference primary ballot in our state, we also vote on Democrats to represent us, our district,
mhm,
to the Democratic Party. And
mhm,
those people who we elect on that ballot are going to go vote in who the new chair is and who the new executive committee is for the Democratic Party. And that's who really sets the tone for what the next 4 years of party politics in the state is going to be. So if we want to see people getting recruited and trained and supported in running for office,
mhm,
these elections really matter. Who we put in there really matters. If they're willing to work, if they're willing to have a party that's functional and raises money and uh, gets
yes.
people involved and follows the bylaws and
Mhm,
endorses candidates that can win and helps them get elected. Um, look, even pushes back on messaging wise, just pushing back. Jeff Landry, when he was attorney general for the last 4 years, was allowed to say whatever he wanted to say and do whatever he wanted to do with very little pushback, right? People weren't
mhm,
really calling him out. And then all through 2023, even though he'd been this kind of radical guy as attorney general, he ran a campaign for governor as a moderate, saying, "Oh, I'm going to come in and be this moderate guy." Nobody called him out on that either. Nobody said, like,
mhm,
"That's not who you are, and that's not how you're gonna govern." As soon as he got in and started governing, we saw him revert back to the radical guy that he is. So,
mhm,
um, there needs to be somebody at the party who's making sure that we're calling him out for all the stuff that he's doing. We're calling the legislators out for the things that they're doing and preparing the electorate to look at voting a different way or voting at all
mhm.
when
Yes.
the time comes around again.
Yes, I can agree with everything you said. Since you did mention about Jeff Landry, I'm glad you had the opportunity, like about a few months ago, to actually write an article for MSNBC.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Uh, I reviewed it. You did an excellent job expressing different things that happened with the state and why Jeff Landry was actually elected in the first place that other people might not even understand Louisiana politics.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
Louisiana politics is very different than most. Like, even though it is Republican and Democrat, but sometimes they merge together to help each other.
Yeah, that's right, that's right, that's right.
Mhm,
And so one of the things and, that was Jarvis DeBerry who asked me to write that piece and really helped me kind of formulate how I should focus it. And so
mhm,
because it was for a national audience, he wanted to make
mhm,
sure that I kind of explained, like, should national Democrats be worried
mhm,
by the outcome of the Louisiana elections? Is this what we're looking at happening nationally? And,
mhm.
my take on that was I don't think they should be worried, but they certainly should see it as a cautionary tale that they
Yes.
don't let this happen to our nation. What we're
Mhm.
going through in Louisiana isn't something that we should wish upon the whole country.
Yes.
and then
Yes.
so as I mentioned, like again, we have this opportunity now to start changing it. And if it's okay, I just want to mention if there's still time for folks to vote when this comes out for the March 23rd election, they can go to bluerebootla.org and find candidates who are running to reform the party and try to make it better and try to fix kind of some of the stuff that's going on right now in the state.
Yeah, since you just mentioned the new thing you're working on, which is the Blue Reboot campaign,
Yeah.
one of my questions is, what is the plan for the Blue Reboot campaign, and what did the campaign, when did it begin? In other words, what it is
Yeah.
and why it was started,
Yeah.
and the importance of it.
So Louisiana Lefty started doing podcasts last year after in January 2023, we shifted our focus of podcasting largely to talking about the Louisiana Democratic Party because the chair had put out this very strange advertisement that that was shown in several media markets in the state
Mhm,
where it was very unclear why she was putting the ad out. It wasn't advertising the Democratic Party. It was advertising a PAC called Team Louisiana, which has never done anything and
mhm,
still hasn't done anything, and
mhm,
seemed to be really promoting her. So the conventional wisdom amongst state pundits was that she was exploring a run for governor herself,
yes.
which is not the job of the state party chair. The state
Mhm,
party chair should be recruiting candidates and raising money to fund them, and not just for governor, but for all the seats that were open last year. So there became a worry. I certainly was one of the folks who started to worry, like, what's going on? This looks like we're getting set up for a bloodbath in
mhm,
2023, which was borne out. So I started just doing podcasts on, well, how do we get a state party chair, and how do we elect these DSCC members that vote on state party
mhm,
chairs. And so we started just doing podcasts about that. And as I was doing them, folks started saying, well, we really ought to be recruiting people to run for these seats. And I said, I don't want to recruit people, but I am happy to keep spreadsheets for you if that's something y'all are interested in doing. So there were probably about 24 people from between spring and fall who stepped up across the state to say, we're willing to either run ourselves or help find people who were run. And
mhm,
they found a little over 100 candidates. There are 210 seats total in the
mhm,
Democratic State Central Committee. And they found over the course of several months about 106, 107, somewhere in there, candidates who were willing to run for these seats. And so we just made sure that we kind of trained them on how to run a campaign, on what they would need to do as a DSCC member, and then we've been trying to educate the public more. There's been a PR move to try to get some media on this so that people know that these elections are happening and that and what
mhm,
this organization does. Blue Reboot itself is just an organization that was created after these candidates qualified. So their
mhm,
qualifying dates were in December. Once they qualified to run for these seats that are up for election on March 23rd, Blue Reboot formed just as a way to support these candidates. So
mhm,
myself and my friend Drew Prestridge kind of put together this little organization that operates like a PAC, and we just been supporting this group of candidates who look. Most of them are brand new to politics, brand new to the Democratic. I mean, they're Democrats, but they haven't been
mhm,
involved in Democratic Party politics. Most of them are new to this and just wanting change so badly they were willing to step up. And they come
mhm,
from all walks of life. We've got farmers and teachers and
mhm,
um, just folks from every kind of occupation that you can think of, union members and um, moms, moms and dads, and just regular middle class people who want better for the state and are willing to step up and do the work to change it. And I've just been really impressed with them. I always say that one of the things that I watched happen, again, I wasn't involved in the recruiting piece so much as just helping with data on
Mhm.
the back end. Um, I would get like we'd get people who would several people who would sign up to run for one district.
Mhm.
And we'd say, well, we don't want to run our candidates against each other. Let's pick one candidate. Let's have one candidate running for each of these districts where we have someone interested in running. But I
Mhm.
don't want to pick who that person is. I'd love for y'all to just go have coffee together or get on a Zoom
Mhm.
together and decide amongst yourselves who should run for this seat. And
Mhm.
in almost every district, 99% of the time, they'd come away from those coffees or those Zooms and say, "We picked our candidate. We picked the person that's gonna run." They were so mission driven about
Mhm.
getting change that they put their egos aside and just said, "Let's work together and get this done." And I was just so impressed by that, and I found it really heartwarming.
Yes, it really was heartwarming. I'm glad a lot of people decided to actually step up because really, the Louisiana Party for Democrats really is time to rebuild it in general because the state was let down for the last election. It's really sad, but if you look at it, it was let down locally and nationally.
Yeah, that's right.
And when I heard that, I'm like, I couldn't believe that. But what I do like is like I'm 42 and younger people and up like me, they were ready to get back in. They're ready to get into politics and change the state, and that's basically what it would take.
Yeah.
It would take things just like that. People who have the willpower, the mojo to keep on going and expressing themselves.
And what I say to people is I'm so glad that all these new people, like I said, I mean, it's over 100, and the vast majority of them is their first time stepping up to run for any office.
Hmm.
And my hope is it's not their last time, that
Hmm.
they'll run again, whether it's for a party seat or a school board or parish council or
Hmm.
whatever. There's so many of these seats that we need to start building a bench for if we ever hope to have people who are trained up and have the experience to run for governor and attorney general and those things.
Hmm.
They've got to start somewhere.
Yes, that is very true. I'm glad that the opportunity became available because I remember receiving one of the emails on it, and I was glad to receive it. But I know that's not what I should actually do. But I'm going to support the new people coming in because actually, I looked at the list before I started the interview, and I realized I know quite a few people actually on the list, and
I
so
bet you
I'm
do.
glad.
I bet you do. Yeah.
So I'm kind of glad that is that way because that's really what it's going to take for Louisiana and then other states. In other words, basically, there's nothing wrong having the old generation doing things,
That's right.
but it's really the time now for all 50 states to let the new people come in who really wants to come in,
I
and
think that's right.
that's the way I feel. I even feel like that with the presidential race as well, because if you look at it, is these people in office, they got other people who might be interested, but they don't let other ones come in, which is the sad part as well.
Yeah, I mean, just to be honest, I had other candidates that I supported 4 years ago that
Mhm.
were younger.
Mhm.
When we got a nominee, I was more than happy to vote for that nominee, and I will be more than
Mhm.
happy to vote for our nominee again this year because I
Mhm.
do feel the danger of
Mhm.
not getting him reelected.
Mhm.
So that's where we are, but I am
Mhm.
again, I look at we have a good bench nationwide. We have a good
Mhm.
bench of people. So
Mhm.
I see there is opportunity down the road for us to elect some younger people who will I feel will be more will represent us, a vast majority of us better. Um, and then, again, for these local seats that we're talking about with the blue reboot
Mhm.
right now. I'm glad you say that
Yes.
you know a bunch of them, and I would hope that you do too, because we have found community leaders. And one of the reasons that we went to find those people and kind of reached out, not necessarily even to them individually, we went to different community organizations and said,
Mhm.
hey, we know that you're going up to the legislature every time there's a legislative session and you're advocating for your bills and you're advocating for your issues and your constituents, your memberships,
Mhm.
and you're getting nowhere because we don't have the right people elected. And the only way we're ever going to get there is if you help us reform the Democratic
Mhm.
Party and make it a party that cares about the same issues that you care about. So we have found folks who have come from some of these organizations. I mentioned Vote earlier, and they have
Yes.
several people running for these
Mhm.
seats. So I'm really hopeful that um, people will know those names. That some of them are running against some very well-known people. Some of them are running
Mhm.
against elected officials, and the legislators will probably be really hard to beat. And folks have asked us, why are you running people against these legislators? Are you against these legislators? And I've said unequivocally, no, we're not against our Democratic legislators are our allies, but
Mhm.
a more functioning Democratic Party will better support their legislative efforts.
Mhm.
And they've got their jobs so cut out for them over the next 4 years that we'd much rather free them up to do the legislative work and have these young people who are fired up and ready to go come in and help rebuild the party.
Yes.
And then again, build the bench, because those legislators that are there now are going to term out someday. So who's going to come in behind them if we're not training new candidates?
Yes, that is true. You do have to train new people to come in because really that's how it was only going to change. And that's
Yep.
across the board.
Hmm.
You got to let the new people come in who really wants to. You got to train them because they got some really powerful people who believe they can actually change the world and change the state they live in and just really want to give back to where they grew up at. And that's what matters.
That's right. That's right.
Mhm. Well, we have explained a lot during this conversation. I really enjoyed it. One question I'm going to ask you is, in closing, can you provide any words of wisdom to the listeners that are wanting to make positive change in their community?
Sure. I think if you want to make positive change, find your place, get
Mhm.
involved. Just find your place and get involved. And it might take you, I know, Michael, you have organizations like Jeremiah
Yes,
Project that you've been involved in it forever.
correct.
And
Uh-huh.
so it might take a couple of times looking around to find your place. But
Mhm.
once you find it and you find a home,
Mhm.
you can really dig in and work with people that are like-minded. Um, they're usually, I often see people who see like, oh, something needs to happen in my community, and the first thing they think to do is start a new organization. And quite
Mhm.
often what I see is like, oh, well, there's already somebody in your community doing that. You just need
Mhm.
to connect with them. So
Yes.
I would say do the research and find out who's doing the work that you care about in your community and try to work with them. Because again, there's power in numbers. So the bigger your
Correct.
organization is, the more powerful you'll be. And look,
Mhm.
if it doesn't work out or you can't find somebody who's already doing that work, then cool. Start, your own group and start your own revolution and go from there. But the main thing is just to find a place where you feel like you're at home and where, my dad used to tell me, um, for years and years and years growing up, I had a bit of um, depression, and I wasn't really sure what my place in the world is. And my dad was always telling me, just find something that makes you want to get up in the morning and do it every day.
Yes.
Find the thing
Mhm.
that makes you excited to get up every day. And so for a while, I did art, and I really liked art a whole lot. It was not
Mhm.
until I found the Obama campaign that I couldn't wait to get up every morning
Mhm.
and I hated to go to bed at night. I hated to stop doing the work, and I think,
Mhm.
if you can find that thing that you're that passionate about, that you just can't stop doing it. You can't wait to start, and you don't wanna stop. I
Mhm.
think that that's how you can really make change in your community. But find your people. Go find your people. Do a little research. There's so much online now, whether it's Reddit or Facebook or wherever, all the places, in TikTok, all the places in between, and just get out. Go to neighborhood meetings and community meetings and talk to people and find the people who are doing the things you're doing, and then just dig in.
I totally can agree with that. And then some organizations that we both know that's in the state of Louisiana, you have Vote, they're good. And you also have the Power Coalition. You have Step Up Louisiana. They're doing some good work as well. And I've been following them and I'm impressed. And I'm also glad the stuff they're doing for different groups. And same thing for the Power Coalition. The last election, they were actually expressing people how important it is to vote, and they continue to do that type of work as well.
100%. And so if you can't actively engage with them and you can support them financially, please help with
Mhm.
that because they also all need that kind of help. But those are some amazing places to start.
Mhm.
Vote and Power Coalition and Step Up Louisiana. I am definitely a member of Step Up Louisiana. I just haven't been able to get to the meetings lately. So I didn't want to false advertise that that's a group that I'm in. But
Mhm.
they're amazing organizations that I have worked with multiple times on multiple campaigns, and any campaign that I have been successful with, they have been a part of it. I can tell you that for sure.
Yes, that's actually how I met through like the Jeremiah group, working with the Power Coalition and Step Up Louisiana. And I'm glad I was able to work with all of them and learn from them because I'm thinking about joining another one, but I'm like trying to figure out which one because I love community service work, and that's how we both met together in the first place.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Mhm.
And I'm so glad that I met you, Michael. It's been nice having you kind of come in and out of my life over the years. But every time I see you out at a city council meeting or
Uh-huh.
wherever we run into each
Yes.
other, it's always a great pleasure to run into you.
Yes. You too as well, Linda. Well, this is the end of the interview. At this time, I would like you to leave give my listeners your contact information, how they can look more into you if they're interested.
Well, they can find my podcast, Louisiana Lefty. I'm on all the major podcast apps or at my website, louisianalefty.rocks.
Mhm.
Um, they can also email at info@louisianalefty.rocks. And I am personally on all the social media places, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. It's just my name, Lynda Woolard,
Mhm.
LYNDAWOOLARD.
Um,
Threads, Blue Sky, Mastodon. I've joined all of them. I don't know what ones I'm going to be using yet, but I'm the same. I'm my name on all of them.
it's totally understandable. And do you have anything else you're working on in the future you'd like my guests to know?
Not right now. I'm hoping that we can, get the new Democratic Party set together, and we'll know March 23rd. We'll know how those elections go, and then a month after that, they'll actually work on electing the next party chair and the next executive committee for the party. So we'll be able to know by summer if we're going to get a good new party or not. And anticipate that at some point I will do a little bit of work for the presidential election. I
Mhm.
certainly want to make sure that we don't lose that one.
Yes. This is going to be a really interesting race, and this year especially. But I believe at the end, everybody's going to make the choice that they want to do, and that's what matters overall.
I mean, just please go vote. Don't don't sit home. Don't
Yes,
sit home.
yes, I do agree with that. Everybody, please go vote. And once again, Linda Willard, Thank you for being a guest on Consulting Between Friends podcast.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
After a short break, we will return. We are back. In closing, I hope the information was valuable to my listeners. The knowledge that Lynda Woolard provided was meaningful for anyone who wants to be an organizer or a mentor. Lynda expressed what motivates her to connect with multiple people and why it matters to her. I'm glad I had the opportunity to interview my longtime friend, Lynda, and learn even more about her. We will continue to support each other endeavors in the future. Consulting Between Friends has some news to share. The podcast Consulting Between Friends has achieved a humongous milestone. The podcast has now over 10,500 downloads and counting. This achievement happened at the beginning of March 2024. Thank you, listeners, for continuing to support the podcast. One last thing, remember to support local businesses, and providing knowledge for others is your path to legacy. Thank you for listening to Consulting Between Friends. This podcast is available on Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Apple Podcasts, as well other platforms that are available. So like and subscribe. Need to contact us and leave us a comment? You can find us on Instagram at Consulting the letter B Friends. Once again, Consulting B Friends. An email address is consulting the letter B friends at gmail.com. Once again, consulting B friends at gmail.com. Consulting Between Friends now has a merch online store called Podcast Merch Headquarters. This is where you can buy merch to show your support for the podcast. Some items to choose from are t-shirts, tumblers, and hoodies, as well many other things I know you will appreciate. So take the time to review the items in the store. The link will be available in the podcast notes under Podcast Merch Headquarters. Thanks again for the support. If you have an extra minute, it would be greatly appreciated if you could answer a few questions regarding the quality of the podcast. The link will be in the description. Consulting Between Friends. Thanks to everyone for making this possible. The host, Michael Holmes Jr., the producer and content creator, Michael Holmes Jr., the artwork cover, Michael Holmes Jr., original music, a DJ named Slash, special guest, Lynda Woolard, community organizer and mentor, content distributor, my producer, podcasts.